From a Fiat banned for political reasons to a Porsche model owned by Bill Gates that was initially banned for not conducting a crash test, these are the cars too illegal for America. First up, the unassuming Fiat 126P. The Fiat 126P, produced from 1976 to 2000, was also known as the Polski Fiat, thanks to its popularity in Eastern Europe. The 126P is a fairly simple, practical and cheap car that simply never made its way into the US, and for a very unique reason. It's not too fast. In fact, it might even be too slow for the American highway. The tiny two-cylinder engine of the 126P is only capable of going for a top speed of 70 miles per hour. Plus, the car would probably not pass the safety and emissions standards anyway. Aside from their ridiculously slow speed, the Cold War would also influence why this car was never sold in America. One of the factories that produced the 126P was in Poland, which would be part of the Soviet Union up until 1989. This fact alone would have warranted the ban on car sales by American politicians. Even if it wasn't banned by the politicians, the public themselves would probably be reluctant to get their hands on one. Speaking of cars that go too slow, the next one is the exact opposite. The 8C Spider Roadster and the other variant of the 8C Competizione would be the last line of supercars ever produced by Alfa Romeo, and during its short-lived 3 years production run from 2008, Alfa Romeo made sure that they made a car that was one for the books. How could gearheads not love this car? The powertrain features a Ferrari Maserati-derived crossplane. It uses the Ferrari F136Y V8 engine capable of churning out a top speed of 180 miles per hour. And even Jeremy Clarkson of Top Gear once said that this is the best looking car ever made. But guess who doesn't love this car? The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, who, on the contrary, finds the car to be simply too fast for the American highway and has banned it ever since. And if you think you can bypass their ruling through the show or display rule, think again. As according to an NHTSA document, this car is listed as ineligible for that rule. The NHTSA has no shortage of cars they find to be too fast, and a hybrid hypercar that holds the record lap at Nürburgring in 2022 truly deserves that ruling. Sure, hypercars can reach ridiculous speed levels, but the Mercedes-AMG 1 is simply built differently. Unveiled by Mercedes-AMG in 2022, they wanted owners of this car to be able to get a little taste of F1 driving while being fully road legal. So they based the one engine on the engine of the Mercedes-AMG F1 W06, installed more F1 inspired parts and systems, and even had Lewis Hamilton as part of their development team. As such, the one can reach up to a top speed of 219 miles per hour and go 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds, making it an engineering feat that the NHTSA finds to be too powerful. But of course, the NHTSA also banned cars that are simply not safe for the US road. Japanese manufacturers are without a doubt the key players in city cars. They even have a whole genre of cars around it, the K car or the light automobile. And in 1990, Toyota set out to flesh out how future Kai cars would look through the release of the Toyota Seta, featuring unique design choices such as butterfly doors and its T-top roof that unfortunately becomes the car's undoing, as it does not meet the NHTSA safety standards. An official source even mentioned that if Toyota were to make a variant of Seta that compiled with these safety standards, they would have to build it from scratch, and Toyota simply wasn't willing to do so. Futuristic looking cars do tend to push the limits on what's possible, but this next one also punches the limit of safety. So you shouldn't be surprised that the 2002 Smart Crossblade, a car without a roof, barely a door, and a very low windshield, does not pass the American safety standards. And if you're wondering why the car looks that way, this car is actually a concept car that was shown at the 2001 Geneva Auto Show. The car received a great response, and the brand decided to take a chance with a limited production run of 2,000 units in 2002. Obviously, the great response at the Geneva Auto Show was purely due to the fun design of the car and not because of the Smart Crossblade's performance, as despite its 600cc Mercedes-Benz M160 Suprex triple engine, it only has 70 horsepower and takes 16.8 seconds to go from 0 to 62 miles per hour. Maybe if the NHTSA had been established to ensure groundbreaking designs, they would have a different ruling on this car, but unfortunately, they weren't. And for a less futuristic looking car that also got banned for pushing the limits of safety, meet the Volkswagen Thing, which was actually sold in the US for 2 years, from 1973 to 1974. During that time, the car was available in the US market. It was predominantly marketed to surfers and hippies, who could soak up everything nature had to offer thanks to the foldable PVC convertible top, foldable front windshield, and 4 doors that could be removed in a matter of minutes. You can even hose down the interiors after all of your adventures, as we're pretty sure it would get pretty dirty in there. However, the bureaucracy would rain on their parade once a tighter safety regulation was passed in 1975, but for good reasons, as the only safety feature that the Thing has is the brakes, and they're insanely low speed, as it will take you 23.2 seconds to get up to 60 miles per hour. You probably don't care about most cars on this list, but this one is surely a joy that pains a lot of American drivers to miss out on. For a time, American drivers could enjoy the iconic Mazda RX7 until the last US model was produced in 1995. 1 year later, however, cars were mandated to have an OBD2 or onboard diagnostic system for emissions testing, and Mazda thought it wasn't economically justifiable for them to comply with this change, as even when the US version of the RX7 was available, the hype of the car was not as high as it is now, which led to only 1,399 units sold in 1995. In that year, Mazda would simply drop the sales of the RX7 in the US. But the good news is, if you're willing to go the extra mile, there is a way for you to import Japanese RX7 models that were produced from 1996 to 1999, as the 25-year import law allows a vehicle to be exempt from safety and emission standards as long as it is produced at least 25 years ago. This law will also allow you to import other JDM icons that were previously banned, such as the Nissan Skyline GTR R34, which was released in 1999. Would you be surprised if Volkswagen also banned a car from being sold in the US? Well, specifically, Volkswagen of America, and the car that was banned was actually a 1996 Subaru Sambar van. If you're confused, then hear me out. The story started when Tyler Barg, who runs a US-based car importer called Tiki Bunny Imports, wanted to bring the perfect 1996 Subaru Sambar van stateside for one of his clients. The car was everything the client wanted. It has the client's favorite color, was driven for only 53,000 miles, comes with a rare multi-panel sunroof, and received a Volkswagen Type 1 body conversion, even with the big Volkswagen badge on the front side. Things would get dicey once the car arrived at the port in Baltimore. Thanks to the big Volkswagen's logo slapped on the car, the US Customs and Border Protection checked in with the Volkswagen of America to make sure whether they authorized the car's branding or not. As the Volkswagen logo was custom, they did not, which resulted in the CBP seizing the car under suspicion of counterfeiting. More than that, Volkswagen of America even sent Barge an email listing their complaint and what Barge could do about the situation, from abandoning the car or for him to lawyer up. Barge countered the offer by petitioning for the van to have the Volkswagen logo removed, its paint altered, and the Subaru branding restored, but both Volkswagen of America and Customs did not budge. Ultimately, all of Barge's efforts to get the car back were not fruitful. He didn't even know about the fate of the Sambar up until that point, and for his client, he eventually did get them a cute Nissan Pao as a replacement. But that was not the only case of a failed attempt to repeal a banned car. In 2019, the NHTSA would receive a petition from G&K Automotive Conversion Inc. so that they would be able to import the Mercedes-Benz Maybach S600 Pullman produced from 2017 to 2019. G&K would argue that the S600 Pullman is substantially similar to the US version of the Maybach S650, and that the S600 Pullman can also be altered to meet the safety standards. But the NHTSA did not share the same understanding with G&K, so they went straight to contact the Mercedes of America to verify this. It was Mercedes of America's ruling the S600 Pullman is substantially different, mainly because of its mass of around 7,900 pounds compared to the mass of the S650, around 6,200 pounds, which eventually caused the petition to be denied by the NHTSA in 2021. And for a banned car that was successfully imported to the US, the 1986 Porsche 959 was a car wanted by many. Bill Gates, for instance, was extremely interested in getting his hands on one. Unfortunately, for Bill Gates and other Americans who wanted this limited edition car that was one of the earliest high-performance all-wheel drive supercars with 450 horsepower and going from 0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds, it would be illegal to import one until 1999, as the car never took the physical crash test. Why? Well, the NHTSA required Porsche to hand over 4 built Porsche 959 for the test, and with how complex it is to build one, it is understandable that they were reluctant to hand even one 959 for the crash test. Bill Gates and perhaps many others who imported the car once it was released had to wait for 13 years until the show and display law was enacted in 1999. One of the clauses of this law is that a car can be exempt from necessary tests as long as it is a car that meets a standard of historical or technological significance. We think that the Porsche 959 fits the bill perfectly. The show and display law is all thanks to Porsche enthusiast Bruce Canepa, who worked closely with a lawyer to draft a regulation that allows for limited production and significant cars to be registered for public use. and eventually be passed through Congress. So if one day you're importing a car through the show and display law, you can thank Bruce Canepa for that. It's sad that a few of these machines have never been greenlit under US soil, but this next video will leave you in tears when you hear how many of the world's rarest cars can't be driven anywhere. Check it out.